Okay. Hello, today we will be presenting on Judeo-Italian. Our fun fact is that the first written example of the word pizza in Italian is from a Judeo-Italian glossary, which contained the entry pizza 200 years before any non-Jewish Italian written evidence of the word. For a quick historical overview, the earliest known Jewish population in Italy is from circa 200 BCE, and there's been a continuous Jewish population there ever since, making it one of the oldest continuous Jewish populations in the world. The first Italian Jews likely spoke Greek and had knowledge of Semitic languages such as Hebrew and Aramaic, though most would not have spoken those languages vernacularly. Many adopted Latin and spoke the language as it evolved into Italian circa 1000 CE. There was a lot of internal displacement of Jewish people within Italy as various city-states expelled them before allowing them to return, and later waves of immigration included Ladino and Yiddish-speaking Jews. Examples of Judeo-Italian writings include 10th century Hebrew writings containing individual words in Italian, and many fully Judeo-Italian texts in a variety of genres dating from the 13th through the 18th century, especially glossaries, Bible translations, and poetry. And there's not been the same prolific production of Judeo-Italian literature since. It's difficult to determine exactly when spoken Judeo-Italian began to decline, but as Standard Italian has become more common, other dialects and languages have suffered. The large amount of Judeo-Italian literature produced throughout history makes it one of the more studied Western European Jewish languages, though scholarship tends to emphasize those writings over the current spoken language. And it's unfortunately difficult to find even recordings of native speakers speaking Judeo-Italian.
So for the linguistic components of Judeo-Italian, the base language is Italian, and when Judeo-Italian began to form, it was co-territorial with Italian, as both languages were spoken in Italy, and Judeo-Italian is still co-territorial, unlike languages like Yiddish and Ladino that have reached a post-co-territorial status, as it is still spoken today in Italy along with Italian. And for the languages that preceded Judeo-Italian, the earliest Jews in Italy were believed to have spoken Greek, as Ali mentioned, along with some Hebrew and Aramaic, and many of those Greek speakers then adopted Latin, which evolved into Italian, the base language of Judeo-Italian. And for certain Judeo-Italian dialects, other Jewish languages had an influence. So one example is in Livorno, a coastal city in Italy. There was a large population of Sephardic Jews, so many Spanish and Portuguese words have become incorporated into Judeo-Italian dialects. And two examples of these loanwords that have been incorporated into Judeo-Italian are agora, meaning now, and nada, meaning nothing. And some general pronunciation. One difference in pronunciation between Judeo-Italian and Italian has to do with nasals. So the GN phoneme in Italian often becomes just the N phoneme in Judeo-Italian words. And one example is how the Italian segno, meaning sign, is just seno in Judeo-Italian, altering both spelling and pronunciation. And there's also a pattern of two consonant phonemes being reduced to just the first when comparing an Italian word to its Judeo-Italian equivalent. And this was the case with the LD of Italian scaldere, meaning to warm, being reduced to just the L of Judeo-Italian scholare. And another example is the MB of Italian ombra, meaning shadow, being reduced to just the first phoneme M for the Judeo-Italian ombra.
For the Hebrew-Aramaic component pronunciation, in general, Judeo-Italian follows more Italian phoneme patterns than Hebrew or Aramaic ones. Common sounds from Hebrew, such as, and excuse my pronunciation here, the het, are largely absent. But due to the lack of spoken Judeo-Italian available to study and the regional variations, it's difficult to analyze the Hebrew and Aramaic component of Judeo-Italian pronunciation. We can, however, examine Judeo-Italian pronunciation of Hebrew words and songs. In a Judeo-Roman version of the song Hadgadia, the letter, I believe, het is silent and tav is pronounced like the English letter D. Thus, the Hebrew Malax Hamavet is pronounced as Malax Amaved in Judeo-Roman.
And for the semantics or meanings of loanwords, one category of loanwords is words having to do with non-Jews, One example being Narel, which refers to a Christian but literally translates to uncircumcised. And many loanwords also have religious meanings, which has been a trend in this class. Some examples being the loanword coming from the Hebrew word for multitudes, specifically used in the religious context. And other Hebrew loanwords with religious meanings are kezer, meaning kosher or pure, and tefillah, meaning prayer. And another category of meaning for loanwords are euphemisms, which has also been a common category of loanwords in this class. One example being the Hebrew loanword makam, which directly translates to place, but can also be used as a euphemism to refer to the toilet, again, following the trend of having alternate words for things that are considered immodest. And then for morphosyntactic integration of loanwords, many Hebrew loanwords are incorporated morphologically into the Italian system. So one example is the Hebrew verb mahal, meaning to forgive, and this verb is incorporated into Judeo-Italian with the addition of the ARE ending that makes the Judeo-Italian verb malher. And then this verb can be further integrated into Italian morphology to become the singular imperative malha, because changing the ARE ending to A is a morphological rule in Italian for converting verbs to singular imperatives. And another example stemming from the same Hebrew verb mahal and Judeo-Italian equivalent malher is the word malamento. And this morphological integration uses the Italian mento suffix to make the word function as a noun rather than a verb. But some Hebrew loanwords are left mainly unchanged from their origin language of Hebrew, such as these two nouns from Hebrew meaning hosts and Egypt. And from what I read, it appeared that many of the loanwords that were left mostly unchanged are those signifying Jewishness or religiousness. And then in addition to Italian morphosyntax altering Hebrew words, it can also go the other way with Hebrew morphology altering Italian words. And this can be shown in the use of Hebrew possessive suffixes on Italian nouns in a text called the Chronicle of Ahimaaz. And in this work, the Italian words forno and forca, meaning oven and fork, are given Hebrew possessive suffixes to become fornan, meaning their ovens, and forkan, meaning their forks. And then some more examples of words for words relating to weddings. We have chadan, meaning groom, and kala, meaning bride. And both of these words are Hebrew loanwords. And for greetings, I found the word for welcome in a 17th century Sabbath poem. And the Hebrew characters are shown on the slide, but in Latin letters, it's written as benvenuta. And this is not a Hebrew loanword. And then for words to refer to non-Jews, yantil means Gentile or non-Jew, which looks and sounds pretty similar to the English word Gentile. And two more examples are Haga, meaning a non-Jewish holiday, and Udo, meaning Jesus, but literally translating to that one. And for orthography, Judeo-Italian was written in Hebrew letters for centuries. And an interesting feature of Judeo-Italian orthography is how words are divided up or not. So sometimes a definite article or the preposition a is written in the same word as the following noun to imitate Hebrew. So an example of Judeo-Italian combining two Italian words into one is la via, meaning the road, versus la and via as two separate words in Italian. And orthography can also signal gemination or consonant lengthening. And this consonant lengthening can be indicated by dagesh, depicted by the dot in the middle of the middle letter in this image, or in the Italian manner by having two of the same letter in sequence, such as the double S in the word fos. And when written in Latin letters, L' is often used to mimic the contracted Italian article, such as the word l'anima, meaning the soul. And then finally, I found an interesting case where an author incorporated both Hebrew and Latin letters, especially the Latin letters H, I, and O in the same words. And this was the case with the word oratorio, which contains both Hebrew characters and the Latin letter O in the way he spelled it. And here's an image of the writing. This image comes from the Song of Songs, which is unsurprising as we've seen in this class how many early written documentations of Jewish languages come from religious texts. And it's written in Hebrew. And though a lot of Judeo-Italian is written in Hebrew, some also consider Judeo-Italian to include Hebrew words and Latin letters, or Italian works in Latin letters written by Jews, So the unclear boundaries about what is considered Judeo-Italian relates to an overall theme of this class, which has been, it doesn't really matter if we can definitively categorize languages and dialects, but instead of getting caught up in the labels and distinctions, we should just focus on learning about them and their interactions and differences.
Next, I'll be speaking about sociolinguistic variation. And Italy's history as a collection of city-states and smaller kingdoms led to extremely distinct dialects. Especially in the mountainous north, communication and travel were difficult, which allowed language variation to flourish. In fact, many of these dialects are distinct enough from Standard Italian to be considered their own languages, but because they exist in a sort of language continuum where people in neighboring towns can generally understand each other, but the differences multiply over distance, Italian language variation is considered a group of dialects of Standard Italian, which is itself based off of 14th century Florentine Italian. Judeo-Italian has a diverse set of regional dialects, just like Italian. Notable examples include Judeo-Roman, Judeo-Piedmontese, and Judeo-Florentine. As more Jewish immigrants entered Italy, their native languages influenced regional Judeo-Italian dialects. Yiddish influenced dialects in northern Italy and Ladino loanwords are present in Judeo-Livornese. The variation in language regionally makes it difficult to identify language patterns relating to gender or education. However, an interesting example of migrated regionalisms in Judeo-Italian is the merging of gender-definite articles into the plural. In almost every Judeo-Italian language, li is used for the masculine and feminine, while non-Jewish Italian languages differentiate plural definite articles by gender, everywhere but southern Italy. This seems to be evidence of Jewish people migrating north from Sicily and southern Italy and taking language features with them. And unfortunately, the contemporary status of Judeo-Italian is moribund, as most of its speakers are elderly and intergenerational transmission is low. It is estimated that only 250 speakers remain today, with 200 of those living in Italy. As many non-Jewish Italian dialects are lost in favor of Standard Italian, so are Judeo-Italian dialects and languages. While there is some post-vernacular engagement with Judeo-Italian, it is limited and not on the scale of that of Yiddish or Ladino. Post-vernacular engagement with Judeo-Italian focuses largely on songs, such as the Judeo-Piedmontese version of the song Haggadah, published in a book on the language. There are also several plays in Judeo-Italian that still perform today,